Rusty, thank you so much for being with me today, all the way from outer space.
From Canada, almost. Hi, Susan. Nice to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. I know that this was kind of last minute, and I'm glad that you hopped on with me. I usually do start our interviews with a digital marketing tip. You guys, I said to Rusty, I usually start with a tip. I didn't think of something today. And then she's like, wait, I have a question. And so, Rusty, why don't you go ahead and ask that question, and I'll quick come up with an answer.
Because you're that good, Susan. The question is it wise to use all our digital marketing platforms when we're wanting to share something, or is it wiser to just stick with just one and make one our platform? Because right now I'm on Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook.
All the things. Yeah, this week I gave a gift to 3 different entrepreneurs while we were looking at their stuff, at their platforms. And I said, so here's the thing. You want to just delete your Twitter, or do you want to just take it off your website and forget about it? And they were like, we could do that. I'm like, well, you haven't posted for a really long time. And are you having engagement? Are you talking to people? Are you getting any business from it? And they're like, no, we just thought we should be on it. And I said, well, take that off. Right. So look at the platforms that are working for you. And when I say working, I mean that are bringing some traffic. If you're measuring your traffic, or you talk with people who come to work with you and you're like, how did you find out about me? Really take a look at the clients you've had in the past X amount of time and see how they've found you. As if you're just getting started and you don't have a whole lot of history, so you definitely want a website. So when I talk about digital marketing, it's all the things. So website doesn't have to be huge, and it doesn't have to be a lot of content, but if you're doing a website, make sure there are ways for people to learn more about you. Make sure all of your pages have calls to action. And for most of the people that I work with, a call to action would be sign up for a free discovery call, or take one of my workshops. So always be really clear on what you want to do. And if it lives on your website, if the workshop lives on your website, if your content lives on your website, then you can decide where to share it and do it where it makes sense. Some of my clients, they have a Facebook page, business page, but really it's just like a billboard. Like, just think of it if somebody were going fast on a highway and just needed to like get your phone number, or somebody wanted to say, oh, you should call Susan, check her out, Susan Finn online, that all my information is there. I don't, at this point, for the people that I'm working with, don't spend a lot of time and effort on trying to get engagement on Facebook pages. I want it to be really consistent with your brand and your messaging. I do think it should be updated regularly so that people, especially now, people know that you're still in business. So I would at least post once or twice a week. Get your services and your contact information up there. If you have a lead generator or a way for people to join your email list, do that as well. So then that leaves, so if you're on LinkedIn, some people will spend all of their time on LinkedIn. A lot of my project managers, accountants, like business coaches, they're going to spend a little more time building conversations, no matter where you are. It's called social media for a reason. Make sure that you're having conversations. So if you did none of that, well, you got to have a website, but if you did none of that and you wanted to do one thing, I would say email marketing. And so it's funny, I'm working with this person on some new platforms on ActiveCampaign. And he said, Susan, don't call it email marketing, call it wait, hold on, I had to write it down because I keep forgetting. Customer experience automation, which is very interesting because what we're doing is creating ways to share information that gives people the experience of getting to know you more and know you better. And so what does that look like? But here's the thing, your email list, your contact list is always yours. And you have control over who is receiving your information. You can't control whether they consume it. There are things you can do, subject lines, personalization, layout, calls to action, where you can entice them to consume it. but it's your list. And if you're nurturing them and you're keeping them engaged with what you're doing by giving them really great information, little bits, nobody has a high attention span these days. I would say if I were to choose one, it would be email after website. But everybody's different, so let's have a conversation about that.
Mhm.
And also take a look at what you're doing, how much time, like it's okay to spend maybe this week with a time clock near you and see what you're spending time on. Talked with somebody yesterday, spending a lot of time on Facebook, but wasn't clear on what it was she was doing. And so she had this feeling that she was doing a lot, but it wasn't bringing her anything. And so whatever it is you do, make sure you're doing it for a reason. You're strategic. Either you're building relationships or you're doing lead generating with an offering. And then try not to get sucked down into that hole, right? Like be super strategic with the schedules. I could go on, but this is not about me today, my friend. I would like to introduce you guys to, and also let us know you're here. We're live on Facebook. So Ambika's here, yay. Let us know you're here. Let us know if you have any questions. Today we're talking to Rusti Lehay. Did I say that right, Rusti?
Yes.
The name of her business is WordQuest, and she's a writer, an editor, and a speaker. Her bio says she's, this is different. Sorry about this, you guys. I'm a little bit off today. She would like you to know that crafting words to serve your audience can be your superpower, just like it is hers. Rusti is most happy to share how the right words at the right time lead to the right desirable results. She says, if you've lived and breathed, you have a story. And so companies and businesses have stories as well. And we're going to talk today about how are you sharing your story? So I kind of went right in there. So her superpower is, when I asked Rusti what her superpower is, she said, empathic editing and wordsmith. So let's start there, Rusti. Empathic editing. Tell me more.
Empath is a word that has been thrown around and lobbied around for quite a while now in the last few years as indigo children and star children have been talked about. And I never really considered myself an empath. I never even really entered my realm of the way that I saw myself. But I had to admit that there was something that was happening between me and my authors and the clients when I was working on case studies for corporations, for the oil field safety equipment, for medical software, that the people that I was speaking with, they would just really struggle to say how they wanted to promote their story or how they wanted to talk about their story, how they wanted to help somebody else, and how, you know, their product or their service or their life experience could be a shining light or a beacon to somebody else, or show their clients that they were the answer to a problem. And with the way that I interviewed people, and I would say, is this what you're trying to say? And they say, yes, how come you can say that better than what I am, you know, struggling with here? So I found that the more that I could really get into the person's space and mind and what they really, really wanted to say, how they wanted to serve, then I was getting that comment quite a bit, that you find a way to say it better than I can myself. So I started saying, okay, maybe I am an empathic editor. And people went, yes, you are. There is no elevator speech that suits what I do and will be able to give somebody in that short 30 seconds exactly what I do. But I find when I'm spending more time with people and meeting with them and having a coffee or a tea, they go, that's really fabulous. So the way that I try to describe it now, that is not the elevator speech, but it's not a half hour, is that when I work with people in the same space on their project, whether it be in a Zoom room, on a Google document, whether we're sitting across from each other, I am teaching them how to fire and hire an editor wordsmith, because the wrong editor can be damaging to a person's desire to write. The wrong editor, the wrong writer for your business or your company or what you want to achieve with your clients can get in the way of what your heart really wants to tell people, how you're serving them, how you want to convey your story. And so the editor-writer combination is much like a marriage. There's no boss in that. Both have to take an equal part. And the winner, or the person that you really serve when you're a writer and an editor, is the audience. So when a writer is struggling to say what they mean, then we have that conversation. What do you want the reader to get? Because we're not on the page there to defend your content when the reader is there. They're alone with your book. They're alone with your content. They're alone with your brochure. They're alone when they're cruising your website. What do you really want them to get? And then we work at distilling it down and getting that to the point where it's said in such a way that it's captivating, it's entertaining, it draws people in, and people can understand it. Now, that still is a fine line, because you don't want to do so much that you're insulting the reader's intelligence, because the reader, we like puzzles ever since the beginning of time, how to start a fire or how to draw our stories on the cave walls. We like a puzzle. We like to figure things out a bit. So it's also a line of, trusting the reader's intelligence to get it too, but leaving enough clues that they will be able to figure it out and feel it.
How do you do that? Like, how does that happen?
Oh, it's through that connection. When I work with people, I don't work in their genre. I don't write their genre. I don't work with other people in their genre at the same time, so that I can really get into their voice and what they're wanting to say, what they're wanting to share, what they're wanting to convey. And with let's take even some of the corporate examples too, of working with a coach who wants to really convey to people that she does things differently than traditional coaching or psychology, where the psychology, let's say the psychology arena is the hour clock, and the psychologist is looking at the clock, and at 5 minutes to the hour, they're trying to wrap things up so that they can shift people out the door so the next person can come in. And what happens in that arena is that there's this doorknob sensation where they're getting almost to the crux of the issue. Their safety mechanisms are down, their defense mechanisms, and they're almost about to share it. And then it goes underground even further as it gets left on the doorknob, as they turn the doorknob to leave the office. And we sometimes resist looking inside our own caves, because there's a Joseph Campbell quote that I've kind of made my own, and saying that the behavior pattern that's disrupting your life that you want to change is the key, is the place that you want to enter to create the future that you desire. And so what happens with the psychologist and the doorknob is it goes a little deeper, because then we've got close to it, but that wasn't quite safe, or we weren't able to say it, so let's just shove it down again. Whereas this coach that I worked with, to be able to say in very succinct words in her advertising and her social media, is that through transformational dialogue and working with you in a dedicated time period without end, and what she's discovered is 3 hours is the magic time that she can get people 99.9% of the time to an epiphany, a realization, and a change that they can then implement. So she doesn't work on the time clock. She works when we're done, we're done. And so all of her first clients, they need to clear their schedule for a minimum of 3 hours. So I helped her create the craft the words that would say that on her social media platforms, to say, if you're tired of the 1 hour segments, so that's the help you get. And if you don't get it in that hour, then you have to try again, and you have to dig it up again and again and again, and it never goes away. In 3 hours of transformational dialogue, you can experience an epiphany, the keys and the roadmap to change that you desire to create the future that you want.
Did you just have that memorized, or are you reading that? That was amazing.
Just out of here.
Yeah, so that is your superpower. How did you get started in this work?
I guess to really go far back, far back, words became an absolute love of mine, using them well. after a road trip to Mexico with my nephews, who are almost the same age as me, because my one sister was 20 years older, and her and her husband, brave soul, to take his sister-in-law that was the same age as his kids and his mother-in-law on a road trip to Mexico from Alberta, Canada. And so I would pick up pen pals all along the way, and I had pen pals all over the world because we'd be staying in campgrounds. They say, let's write to each other. I'd make friends everywhere. And so I had pen pals. Back home on the farm, I'd be saying to my mother, what do I write about? She said, well, write about how when the snow comes late in the year and the goslings come too early, how you have to tuck them into a wool sock with a clothespin at night after you feed them and put them in a box behind the wood stove. Wow. And how when you tumble them out in the morning, they're quiet when they're all tucked in, and it's that simulation of being underneath the goose's wings, but it was too cold outside for them to be there, so we had to bring them in. And then writing these stories to the pen pals, and these pen pals stayed pen pals for years because she taught me how to capture those moments and put them on the page, of how you tumble them out of their sock in the morning and it instantly the beep, 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 until you get their gullets full, and you feel their gullets, and you could feel the grain of the bread in their gullets really like poking out like a big man's Adam's apple. And then they'd be quiet, and then they'd follow me around, and I could crawl under chairs and stuff, and I could go over small things where they try to hop over, and then they'd eventually find their way around. They'd imprint on me. So telling those stories. So I've been a storyteller ever since she taught me how to be a good pen pal.
That's such a good story. That's awesome. And so from that, and then I know you've had quite a career experience, and now who is it that you're working with now, and what is it, do you have a particular niche that you're working with?
Well, that's a great question, Susan.
I got a lot of them.
Yes, I used to have in my Twitter feed that I was interested with everything with the possible exception of math. And even that is not exactly true, because I will do math in my head while I'm driving down the highway just for entertainment sometimes. So with that said, I am currently working with 3 authors, and 2 more are coming into my schedule. One is a doctor who's working with his colleague on a book that's Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life, Discover the 13 Golden Pearls Within. And they both had near-death experiences. Her with an attacker abductor who left her for dead, and him, being a doctor, was actually told 16 years ago he was going to die of Lou Gehrig's disease. And he's still here. He refused to accept the diagnosis and did some journeying and traveling and found out that it was a misdiagnosis. But here's the thing, is that makes one of his introductions really fantastic, is that this doctor that told him he was going to die, and him being a doctor, he said, well, how can I get a second opinion, or how can you prove this? The doctor that diagnosed him said, we can do an autopsy in 3 months.
Oh.
No, that doctor obviously had no bedside manner at all. So his book is coming out with a virtual launch party in June 5th. So we're just finishing that one up now in the final stages of printing and making sure the cover agrees with everything inside, so that the Library of Congress, the ISBN, and Amazon are all happy with how they need it. The other one is a young woman from Vancouver that I've been working with on Zoom that has been in the addictions field, counseling field, for a number of years, and she's been aware that there is a gap for her clients, and how there is no book to discuss how do you navigate that place between enabling the person that's an addict that you love, whether it be a son, a sister, a spouse, or a worker, an employee. How do you navigate the gap between cutting off and between enabling? And so she has taken stories from her counseling experience and the advice and the counseling that she's given these clients, and put them in a book that is not clinical but is accessible, because the books out there are so often clinical, and the books that you can find are often from one person's point of view in a memoir-like state. So her book is covering that realm that there's very little literature out there that will meet the needs. And I always say that if you've lived and breathed, you have a story, like you said earlier. Well, she's now taking all of these people that have been living and breathing the addiction issues with someone they love, and put them in a book. So not only is there one person that is going to be able to get something out of this book, because there's always one that is waiting for your story. I hazard a guess and a bet that there's probably many more, but there's always one that is specifically waiting for you to tell your story. But now she's got this book that is going to meet the needs of so many people that are suffering and struggling and having to deal day to day with somebody that is draining their resources, that is breaking all the house rules, that is draining their bank and causing them to be bankrupt, because addiction with gambling and the drugs these days is just devastating, what it does to a family, to finances, to the structure of the home. So that's the second one. The third one that we're just finishing up now, she's in the final proofread stage, where I have a midwife in England that is one of those people that is silently editing your grammar as you speak. And she's also a midwife, as I said, but this woman's book in Australia, Anne Bridges, is doing a book on hypnobirthing, where she knew that she wanted to be a mother. She was absolutely petrified of the pain of childbirth. And as a nurse, she found out that people can have surgery without anesthetic through hypnosis. So her brain started going, can hypnosis be used to alleviate childbirth pain? And she has done an amazing job in her book talking about how she created the births that she wanted for her 2 children and helps other people have those births, and has the how-to and the stories to back it up. It's phenomenal. So I'm all over the map with the how-tos and the memoirs. I've done a memoir of a woman that discovered later on in life that she was not heterosexual and found her life partner, and many, many stories in her memoir about how she discovered this a long way around, and that there was childhood abuse in the home. But as a child, she would see these beings of love and light outside her window, and she always was striving to find that oneness that she felt with these beings as a child. That was her safe place. So memoir to science to how-to the counseling to hypnobirthing, I'm all over.
Yeah, but you know what? I think it's the thread that I'm hearing and everything you're saying it's all over. But I think the thread that I'm seeing in this is that the story, everybody has a story, and that there's a heart-centeredness to the way that you're working with all of these people, whether it is science, this, that, or the other thing, that you're trying to find the humanity in the stories that they're telling. And that story, when I say humanity, the commonness, but then to be able to put it into words clearly. I am not a wordsmith. I keep struggling.
I think we all struggle sometimes in conversations, and that's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth, because when we listen, and you're a good listener, that is a superpower, Susan.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I love to listen. I was just saying that yesterday to somebody. I'm like, I just want to listen to people's stories. I love that. So you tell them.
I get to do it all the time.
I'll listen. Yes. Yes. Rusti, how can people find out more about you, or if they're interested in working with you? I know you have your website, Rusti. I'll put it in the chat, rustilehay.ca.
Yes, .ca. Proud to be Canadian.
It looks like you have some events coming up.
I do. We're actually having a stage treat this weekend. I have special guests for meditation, for the transformational dialogue coach that I was mentioning earlier. She's also a ghostwriter, but she's found those that when people are stuck and they're having a difficult time telling their story, when she interviews them, that often then they can go off and do their own. Sometimes they will stay and they will do the ghostwriting with her, but often just that little bit of interviewing and getting them to talk, then they know how they want to begin their story, and they're off and they're running and they're doing it. So she's a special guest that we can put in breakout rooms with people if they want to discover, if they want to even just talk about their story, if they want to do some transformational dialogue sample sessions with her. She's available for people attending the stage treat. We have a special guest doing yoga stretch with us on Sunday that she can just pop in then. And Abhika Devi, I think she's on the call right now. She's one of the special guests doing some fabulous meditations for people who register through the Eventbrite link, which can be found on my website. Then they will have a chance to have those recordings if they register through the Eventbrite. And as you said, people can find me on my website, Rusti with an I, not a Y, so it's a name, not a condition, Lehay, rustilehay.ca. And that's how you can find me. That's the best way, because while I make the mistake, as Susan pointed out, of trying to be on so many social media platforms, my website is the brochure that I really love working with and try to keep it as up to date as possible. So get in touch with me there.
Yeah, it's a fun website. You've got a lot going on there. Ambika's telling you she's here. She's waving. Hey, Ambika. So good to see. This was so good. Oh, here she's putting a Facebook. Oh, Ambika's Yogini Yoga. Yeah, Yoda. If you guys haven't followed Ambika yet, she was a guest on this show a couple of months ago too. And I think we all met through Polkadot. Is that how we met?
We did meet through Polkadot.
Yeah.
And my name too, Rusti Lehay, is also on Instagram, where people can follow me there. If websites are too passe for some people, I am on Instagram. So I'll probably keep that one and the website always up to date. If I'm going to fall in love with any social media platform, I think Instagram is the one that I'm trying to perfect.
Yeah, it's fun. I like Instagram. It doesn't seem as noisy as Facebook does. It doesn't seem to have the same weight to it. Yeah. All right, so Ambika's looking forward to the retreat this weekend, and she's putting the link in here. So this is awesome. Thank you so much. I know this is a really busy day, a busy week for you, so thanks for taking the time to be with me this afternoon. I'll be posting this on the different platforms later. You can share it wherever you'd like, and thanks again.
Thank you, Susan, so much. Always a pleasure talking with you, and everybody have fun and put some words down on paper, or tease those 26 gods on the keyboard, whichever way that works for you.
Oh, I like that. It's a good way to say that.